Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is David Valente. I'm the chairman of the Libertarian Party of West Virginia, and I apologize. There's a car horn honking outside of our apartment here. But welcome everyone to the 2020 Libertarian Party Candidate Forum. I have five of our finest Libertarian candidates here with us this evening. We have Will Hyman running for House of Delegates District 48. Erica Kolenich, our gubernatorial candidate, fine gubernatorial candidate. We have Travis Schultz, who is running for Senate District 3, right? I always get mixed up with that. It's 3 and 4 we have candidates in. Brett Rogers running for House of Delegates District number 63 in the Eastern Panhandle. And David Moran running for U.S. Senate. Welcome, everyone. Tonight we're going to break the forum up into two parts. The first part are going to be our statewide candidates. So we'll be dealing with Erica Kolenich and David Moran. So welcome, everybody.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening. All right. So let me get to the questions. Where did we put those? There we go. All right. So I'm going to ask you guys 3 questions each in alternating format, and just let us know what you think. First question is to you, Erica. Tell us about your background. Tell us about your education, your career, and what are your interests outside of politics?
Sure. I graduated from West Virginia Wesleyan College. I was a double major in dramatic arts and political science. After I graduated college, I thought that I never wanted to stay in West Virginia and that I wanted to do something else. So I attended the University of Akron School of Law. I began to practice law in the Northern Panhandle in a town you may be familiar with called Wheeling. And shortly thereafter, I met my husband, Carl. Carl is my law partner. We have a 19-year-old daughter, Iris, who just started her sophomore year at Wesleyan. I am the owner of a small law firm in Buchanan. We focus our practice in the areas of employment law, employment discrimination, sexual harassment, wrongful termination. And we also do some injury work and some general practice, a few, family cases, criminal law, and things of that nature. It's a small business. I have about 10 employees. In my free time, when I'm not running for office or helping the Libertarian Party, I really enjoy the community theater. That's really where my heart and soul lies, is in theater and the arts. And I also spend quite a bit of time being physically active, doing things like hiking, jogging, weightlifting, those types of things.
Fantastic. David Moran, Libertarians in West Virginia will be no stranger to you. You ran for governor in 2012 and 2016 and got us ballot access in both of those elections. Thank you very much. Let the folks know how difficult the task that Erica is facing as she runs for governor, and what was at stake for Libertarians in the gubernatorial election.
I have a great deal of respect for Erica running for governor. It's a tough thing to do. Very, very difficult in that you are constantly in the limelight, and at the same time you are trying to increase the limelight. So it's hard on both sides. Erica's doing an incredibly good job right now running for governor. You probably know that one of the reasons that this is such an important race for us, the governor's race, is because it determines whether or not the Libertarian Party has ballot access, whether we are an official party or not in West Virginia. The first time that I ran for office in West Virginia, I ran for the House of Representatives in our 1st congressional district, but I could not be on the ballot. I had to run as a Libertarian write-in candidate, and that's very, very difficult because it means that the voter actually has to write your name on the ballot, and it's a very cumbersome and difficult process these days, given the way in which our electronic voting machines are working. So we then campaigned to get the Libertarian Party recognized as an official party in West Virginia. And several of us spent an entire summer collecting petitions, from the citizens in order to get on the ballot on a petition basis. That was in 2012. And in order to keep that position then, we had to at least get 1% of the vote in the gubernatorial election. So when the votes are counted for governor, Erica will be getting much better than 1%, but that will determine the fact that the Libertarian Party will continue to be an official party in West Virginia. So I'm very happy to be had the opportunity to do that, and I'm also very happy that Erica is doing it this year.
Yes, absolutely. So, Erica, let me ask you, what do you think are the three biggest issues that you face as you're running for governor? What are the biggest issues in the state?
Well, I think the biggest issues in the state coming up are obviously going to be coming out of COVID-19. COVID-19 has become not only a health crisis, but it's certainly created an economic crisis, a social crisis, and those are all things that our next governor is going to have to deal with. The second thing that I would say is the economy. And, that was going to be an issue even before COVID-19 struck us. And now that COVID-19 is here, that problem has become even more amplified. And I would say the third problem that we're going to face is keeping our young folks here in West Virginia. West Virginia loses population at an astronomical rate, all the while the rest of the states, most of them anyway, are increasing in population. Young folks leave West Virginia in droves, and we have to change that. So I think this term coming up, those are going to be the immediate three things that need to be addressed.
Okay, well, as a follow-up, what are your solutions for some of those issues?
Sure. Well, I think in regards to COVID-19, because it's become such a political topic when it shouldn't be. It's a health issue. It should be no more political than any other health issue such as diabetes, but it's become a health issue a political issue as opposed to a health issue. And it has distracted us from a lot of things. The amount of overdoses and drug usage has increased. We need to start focusing on those things. The economy is obviously deteriorating. We're seeing small businesses close at a rapid rate. In terms of, social interactions, our children aren't getting the social interactions that they would normally get because schools are closed. So those are all things that we're going to have to deal with. In terms of the economy, my economic plan for coming out of COVID is really the same as my economic plan before COVID happened, which is a theory known as asset-based development. Basically, as opposed to putting all of our eggs in the basket that we're going to recruit out-of-state companies or special interest type industries to locate here in West Virginia by giving away our soul, giving away land, giving away, tax breaks and favors, that we focus on the things that West Virginia already has to offer, like our small businesses, like our tourism, and we make it easier for those businesses to operate. And we're really going to have to do that even more in response to COVID-19 because the shutdowns that the governor issued have really, really pushed a lot of those small businesses to the breaking point. So they're going to need our help. And we've already seen through COVID-19 that there are several regulations and rules that make it more difficult to operate small business that obviously we don't need because those rules were relaxed as soon as the pandemic hit. For example, carry out alcohol. That's, something that why aren't we always doing that? Why is there a prohibition on someone ordering a to-go margarita with their Mexican food? So there are a lot of regulations like that that aren't meant to protect safety, but are simply there to be there that we're really going to need to relax to help these small businesses recover from COVID. The other thing that we can't do is we can't do any more shutdowns of businesses. That's just, that is going to have a detrimental effect on our economy here in West Virginia that we can't come back from. We also need to address the healthcare of the state. cancer diagnoses are down in West Virginia since COVID has hit. Now, what we know is there are not less people getting cancer. There are just less people getting diagnosed. There's a lack of healthcare here in West Virginia, which we're going to have to tackle by doing things like eliminating the certificates of need and the unnecessary hoops that healthcare facilities in West Virginia have to go through to operate.
Awesome. David, tell me so you're running in a race against Shelley Moore Capito and Paula Jean Swearingen, two fairly opposed candidates. What contrast do you draw between yourself and your opponents?
That's a good question. Thank you, David. I'd like to go back for just a minute to something that Erica brought up, because it's an issue that neither of my candidates that I'm running against have made any comment about whatsoever, and that is the loss of our best and brightest from West Virginia. I live in a rural district, like most of us do. I run a farm. I also teach at West Virginia University. So I have a good contact with lots of students. And unfortunately, every time that we find somebody who has a very, very fine academic record and graduates very well and is promising individual for technical work and professional work in West Virginia, they have to leave. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples just so that all of you who are listening know how critical this is. My next door neighbor has a daughter who graduated at the top of her class from veterinary school. She now works in Pennsylvania because there's no place for her to find the right kind of job here in West Virginia. I have another friend who received a doctorate from Marshall University. There's no business associated with the medical technology that he specialized in, and so he had to take a job outside of the state. Right across the street from me, I have a young man who also graduated at the top of his class in economic analysis. He now works for a New Jersey corporation doing economic analysis and stock analysis. And one further one, a young man who worked for me very early in his high school career went on to become an airline pilot. That's a challenging profession to have to follow. He cannot work within West Virginia, obviously, because we just don't have an aerospace industry here in West Virginia. So these are critical issues. And to get back to your particular point, David, my two opponents see things in practically the same way. They see government, federal government, as the sponsor of success in the state of West Virginia. And that just isn't so, and it won't ever be so. There is no way that we, as a very rural, community-based state, can benefit from the exercise of oversight and judgment and financial control from outside of the state. We West Virginians have to take advantage of all the resources that we have here and work ourselves to make this state successful. And neither one of my opponents is doing that. They're just simply perpetuating the philosophy that we can obtain from the federal government funding to take care of us. And that is an inappropriate and ineffective, and in the long run, a failure of a strategy for the state of West Virginia. I'll pass it back over to you. You can try another one there, David. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Great points, definitely. So, Erica, you've picked a heck of a time to run your first race. You just before you get the nomination, just before we were able to give you the nomination, we were hit with COVID. We had to delay our convention. Just discuss the challenges of campaigning in the age of COVID. How would you handle COVID differently? I know you discussed a little bit earlier. How would you handle it differently than Justice and Salango?
Sure. Well, for the first part of the question, campaigning in COVID has been really interesting and really challenging. As a candidate, you put together all of these grand plans, and then the world hands you the pandemic, and the nature of campaigning becomes completely different. As a libertarian candidate, I'm not rolling with the millions of dollars that the Democratic and the Republican candidates are. And it has really changed the nature of this campaign to be more of a money campaign, because there aren't events, because it's difficult to meet people, because there aren't events. It's become more of a money race, which points out the problems with modern day politics even more brightly than they would normally be. We see tons and tons of special interest groups and political action committees donating to these campaigns. I mean, these two candidates, Mr. Justice and Mr. Slango, are probably going to spend somewhere between $1 and $1.5 million from May until Election Day, from the primary until the general election. And, what I think that emphasizes, or at least should emphasize to folks, is where is that money coming from, and what type of favors are those folks going to have to put out whenever they become elected, if they were to become elected. So it's certainly changed the nature of campaigning. It's a little bit sad because you aren't able to make as many face-to-face connections. So we do things like this. We do things like social media, radio interviews, which are all great, but they certainly lack in forming those one-on-one type bonds that you normally can with voters if you're, at events such as Bridge Days and Blackberry festivals and all the different types of fairs and festivals that libertarian candidates would normally attend to meet people. In terms of how I would handle COVID differently, or how COVID would look differently under my leadership, I've talked about this a lot, and I think it starts at the beginning. And what I mean by that is you really have to form a relationship with the citizens of West Virginia that is built on trust. They have to trust what you're saying so that you don't have to issue mandates. You can convey information. They know that they're getting accurate information from you. They know that they can trust the information that you're providing to them. And part of the problem that we saw go wrong in regards to West Virginia's COVID response is that the information couldn't be trusted, and there was an inconsistency in how that information was being provided. The inconsistency started at the beginning when we heard the governor say in one breath, it's okay, go to Bob Evans, and literally within days shut down all the restaurants. And that inconsistency continues to today, when the color-coded map that the governor has put out is subject to change based upon which counties are gold or red and who happens to be in his ear at the time. We all know the situation that happened a couple of weeks in, where I believe it was Ohio County and Cabell County were going to be red. That was before we had gold, and they weren't going to be allowed to play football. And all of a sudden the color-coded map changed. So that's the problem, is that we need consistent leadership. The information that we're getting shouldn't be coming from the governor. He shouldn't be doing press conferences every other day. What he should be doing is creating a forum where the scientists and the folks who know the medicine can convey accurate, transparent, truthful information to the citizens of West Virginia, and then let the citizens make the decisions on how they think it's best for them and their families to respond. What we know is at the beginning of this, and I like to remind people of this because we've lost a little bit of this. When we first knew that COVID was here, there wasn't this fighting. There wasn't the fighting about masks. There wasn't the fighting about business shutdowns. There wasn't fighting. We were all on the same page that, we as a society needed to fight COVID-19. Suddenly, the inconsistencies crept in and the politics crept in, and that's when it became a fight. People will choose, and I'm not saying there aren't bad eggs, but most people will choose to protect one another, to protect their families, to not put people at odds. You just have to give them the ability to do that. And the way that the response came out, which is it's okay if we have 250 people in Walmart, But it's not okay for you to go to a coffee shop or a hardware business on Main Street where there may only be one other person and pick something up was terrible, and people responded accordingly. We should be letting families make their own decisions. In regards to education, we should be letting the county boards of education decide based on what their community needs are, what the COVID response is going to be, and what the reopening plan is going to be.
Fantastic. David, let's go with your last question. As this is your third time running for a statewide office in West Virginia, what advice do you give to your fellow candidates and future LP candidates? Oh, Dave, you're on mute.
Thank you,
Yep.
David. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to reinforce something that Erica just said, and that is it's the responsibility of the individual citizens to make things right. It's not the responsibility of the government to make things right for us or to make the decision on what is right. Individuals form democracy. Democracy means that we are all accountable. We all have a certain level of authority, and we all have an incredible degree of responsibility to ourselves, to our families, to our communities, and to the state. It is obscene for us not to recognize that and not to take advantage of the fact that we humans can take responsibility. We don't have to be told what to do. We can figure it out. Now, let me say something else about myself. I'm the kind of person who really likes to have conversations. I like discussions. Some people might call them debates, but I like discussions, not arguments, but ways in which you and I can talk to each other and understand each other and understand each other's perspectives and point of views. And we should be able to defend those at any time. We should have the capability for talking to other people without getting angry and conveying information and listening to what they have to say. My campaign is always built on that, and it always has been, running for representative or for the governor's position, or right now running for the U.S. Senate. A good example of that was when I was running for governor. I was confronted by a man who felt that I should not be running. And he already knew who he was going to vote for. And he told me straight to my face who he was going to vote for and told me why. And I agreed and said I would really like to hear about it. I'd like to hear his perspective and his point of view. After about 20 minutes, he decided he was going to vote for me. Not because I asked him, but because I was calm, quiet, and I listened to him. He not only did that, he got out his checkbook, wrote me a check, and at the same time told me he wanted to take my literature and information back to his family and tell them that he had met me. This is the kind of interaction that we have to have. And I've had a great deal of experience in that. Unfortunately, and again, as Erica said, the entire situation has changed now. We can't really meet people that way. It's very difficult to form those conversations and to listen to people. I do get telephone calls. Day before yesterday, I received a call from a woman who wanted to know my stand on one particular issue. All she really wanted was a yes or no. But 25 minutes later, she understood me and I understood her. I took the time to listen to her, and that's what our representatives need to do. Anybody who runs for public office should not think of running for public office as just a procedural process. It is a human involvement process. It means that you are putting yourself out there and you are letting people know who you are. And sometimes that's difficult. But if you want to be in office, you can't be aloof. You can't stand above the people that have elected you. You have to be in touch with them continuously. And that's what I hope to do for this state, for West Virginia, is to continue that and to carry on. Campaigning is difficult these days. 50 years ago, you could walk down a small town street and you could meet people and shake hands and talk to them. spend time and have a cup of coffee with them and listen to them and so on. That was the way in which government officials were chosen. We're doing it by some sort of machine process now. And it's very, very hard on all of us. And it makes people angry. They have to know that it's not the people that are running for office that are creating that situation. It's just the way that it is. So we all have to be more understanding of how we treat each other, accept each other, and work with each other to build West Virginia into the state that we all want to live in. I'm very happy to be on this show. I'm always willing to take questions and speak with anybody, whether they call on the phone or catch me in the yard. So I'm looking forward to that. We only have a couple of weeks left now. And then we will begin to think about how we can serve society even if we are not in office. And that's important for all of us who are running for office. So thanks, David. I appreciate it. Good questions. Good topic.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. Before we go to our delegate and Senate candidates, David and Erica, well, I'm going to bring you back here in a little bit for further questions, but let everyone know how to get a hold of you. We'll start with you, Erica. How do they find you on the internet?
Sure. You can go to my website. It's nowisthetime.wv.com. You can also find me on Facebook at Erica Kolenich. That's Kolenich, for governor of West Virginia. And you can send me a Facebook message if you have a question, or you can email me at kolenich4wv@gmail.com.
Okay. Yeah. Here is the Facebook page, Clinic for WV.
That's it.
And then here is our website. Now is the time, wv.com. Please drop on, give a like to the Facebook page, donate at Kolenich or at nowisthetime.wv.com. And David, how do you find you? I think you're on mute, Dave.
There we go. I have also pages, electronic pages. The way to remember them is David Moran 4, the number 4, WV. David Moran 4, WV. And you can find most of the information you're looking for there. I'm always happy to give people my telephone number. It's 304-735-6413. 304-735-6413. If I don't answer, the message machine will remind me and I'll call you back. If you want to get in touch with me any other way, look for me at one of Erica's campaign events. I probably will be there.
Fantastic. I want to thank you both for doing this, and stay tuned, or stay on the line where we'll put you in the waiting room and bring on the other guys for their question and answer period. But while we get that going, we'll have a message from one of our sponsors.
Montani Semper Liberi. Words that ring true in the hearts of every West Virginian. Mountaineers are always free. Free to live, free to be whoever they want to be. Bureaucrats shouldn't tell us how to live our lives, to tax us and waste our money. This November, West Virginia has a better choice for governor. I am Erica Kolenich, and I'm asking for your vote.
Oh, Facebook never disappoints. All right. So for this part of the forum, I brought in our, let me make sure I've got everybody online here. We got Will Hyman, who's running for the 48th House of Delegates District. Travis Schultz running for 3rd Senatorial District. And Brett Rogers running for the 63rd, I can learn how to talk, 63rd Delegate District. And again, I need to find my questions here. All right. So we'll start with you, Will. Tell us about yourself. Why, whether it's not your first time running for office. You've run for office before, but what do you like to do outside of politics? And yeah, just give us a little background on you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on tonight, Dave. Uh, First off, I'm Harrison County resident here in Clarksburg. I've lived here for the last about 15, 16 years. I grew up in the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia, in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. And, when I'm not doing political things or arguing on Facebook, I'm a big time collector of military firearms, military surplus firearms. I'm a flight simulator enthusiast, and I do some historical stuff with those. And I'm a big time reader and military, armchair historian, and kind of specializing in military aviation and other things. History is where it's at for me. So that's about. Let's see, I got a wife. Let's see, we've been married for the last 5 years. I got a 4-year-old daughter, and just living the dream here in Clarksburg.
Awesome. So yeah, I've followed you've been tracing your grandfather's steps through D-Day and the
Yep.
victory in Europe. That was fascinating to watch.
Thanks.
Travis, same question. Tell us about yourself, whether or not it's your first time running for office, and what do you like to do outside of politics?
Sure. I'm a husband, a father of 4 young children. My family has called these hills home for 5 generations. While none of us were wealthy or famous, we believe in hard work and treating people with respect. Previously, I did run as an independent in 2004. Why I respect our current then representative. I believed he served 2 decades too long and was never really challenged. Now in 2020, we have a state senator who has served for over 35 years and is now turning 84. And, well, I still believe power unopposed continues to grow and corrupts. Now, outside of politics, I did have 3 little ones in elementary school and one that's about to start, so that keeps me pretty busy. Fortunately, my mother and her wife helps us out quite a bit there, and that's a godsend. I enjoy carpentry and building stuff with my 2 hands. So just an average guy, really.
Awesome. All right, and we will go with Mr. Rogers. How you doing, sir? Tell me about
Just fine. How
yourself.
you doing?
Give me the background and whether it's your first time running, which it isn't, and what you like to do outside of politics.
Well, I've lived in Berkeley County for 29 years. I previously lived in the city of Martinsburg, so I'm kind of new to the 63rd district. But I have a food truck. I'm a licensed mortician, licensed HVAC. I've got licenses out the wazoo. I've got a licensed food handler since I've started a food truck. So I go hiking. I'm a gun enthusiast. Basically, anything outdoors I love to do. That's pretty much it. I decided to run because I feel like there aren't too many people that look out for the small guys that are out here just trying to live their life and start a business and feed their family and do things like that. I was fortunate to have 2 good parents that are able to help me if I need it or do things when I need them. And not everybody's fortunate enough to have that. And, the government needs to be staying out of people's way so more people can enter the market and provide for their families. And that's what most people just want to do. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Fantastic. All right, back to you, Will. Describe your district, and you'll let people know where you're running and describe your district.
Sure. Yeah, I live in Harrison County, West Virginia, like I said, and I'm part of District 48, which encompasses the entire county of Harrison County and a small sliver of Taylor County, which runs along Route 73 or 131 between Bridgeport and Fairmont. It's just a small section, about a 1 mile section, actually. And, our county seat is Clarksburg, and it's about 15,000 people. We also have the up and coming city of Bridgeport, which is about 7,000 or 8,000 people, which is on the come up. We've got the smaller cities of Shinston, Salem, Lost Creek. Let's see. Trying to think of some other ones there. West Milford and Mount Clair and others. I mean, they're smaller areas. Some of them don't even have police forces, but the main population centers are Clarksburg and Bridgeport. Everything else kind of surrounds it. So that sums up Harrison County in a nutshell. But this is the second time I've ran for House of Delegates. I ran it in 2018, where I got about 2.5% of the vote, and I'm looking to expand on that and maybe make a play for it.
What are the biggest issues in your district?
Right now, the city of Clarksburg is in decline. We've got scores and scores of abandoned homes. They are hot spots for vagrants, drug abusers, using methamphetamines and heroin and other serious drugs. And it's caused an issue with property values, and we have an issue there. And like I said, it's a city on the decline. It was once a city of 40,000, almost 50,000 people. It was one time one of the largest cities in the state, and now we're like I said, we've fallen to about 15,000 people, and we got to get out of that. And I think one way to do it is just the fundamentals of free market capitalism and libertarianism. Is get the government out of the way. I think the government caused a lot of those problems. And we've also got issues, with the loss of factories and other places that used to house thousands and thousands of jobs in the glass industry and other industries. And those jobs are gone, and they've been replaced with government jobs at the FBI. We have an FBI complex campus, which is 4,000 or 5,000 employees. I once heard that 1 out of 3 Harrison County residents work for some level of government, whether it's the federal government, state government, county government, city government, municipal government. And, it's hard to justify that when 1 out of 7 West Virginians are on public assistance. So, we have an issue where, we have a lot of government, and it's replaced our industry, and that's a serious issue. And you can see what happens to cities like Clarksburg when that happens. So, I think, getting back to free market capitalism ideals and small limited government would be a huge help to our area.
Awesome. Brett, same question. Describe your district and what are some of the biggest issues facing you in the district?
I have to agree with what Will said. If you've grown up in Berkeley County, when my parents grew up, you had General Motors, you had a lot of small factories where people could go get a job and make as much money without having to go to college and get a degree. And now, like Will said, you have government everywhere. I mean, you have the VA, you've got the Coast Guard, you got the Border Patrol, you've got government buildings everywhere, and our whole town has built the environment off of basing everything off these people that are making government money. And it's like I've been saying for a long time, you either work for the government or live off the government around here, and that's just not the way it ought to be. The 63rd district, very diverse. It actually kind of parts of it are over by Martinsburg High School, and there's a lot of farmland. So there's a lot of opportunity for libertarians in this district because it is such a, like I said, diverse district, and we can reach a broad range of people with our ideas and our policies because most people just want to be left alone to live their lives and do their business. And like, I can't say anything better than what Will said. I mean, we have a whole lot of government around here, and not enough free market to let people go out here and earn their living and live their lives and make their money. I mean, that's what most people want to do, and just be left alone. I think if everyone was left alone a lot more, you wouldn't see such a negative, angry climate of politics to where it really takes us. I don't want to say special person, but I mean, it's not a friendly climate to be involved in politics nowadays, and that's not how it should be. I mean, everyone should be able to have civil discussions about, making things better, because it's obvious that things need to change for everyone. I mean, there's the healthcare, everything needs to change. So we really need to start being more civil and being able to have more discussions to make things better for everyone. So.
Yep, definitely. Travis, tell us about your senatorial district and what are the biggest issues facing you in that district?
Sure. Did you want me
Yep.
to describe the
Yeah.
district
Tell us
any, or?
kind of what towns are in there and things like that.
Sure. I'll make it brief. It includes 4 counties, the largest being Wood County, Parkersburg, South Parkersburg, and Vienna. Then Worth County, the main town there would be Elizabeth. Then part of Roane, and that's home to Spin. Then there's Pleasants County, that's my home county, and the largest town would be St. Mary's, the last 2 being near the river. Well, when it comes to the issues that we're facing, limiting the size of the growth of government, lowering taxes while still keeping the budget balanced, working to improve education, providing choices for students and parents with better options are some of the few big issues. But after speaking with everybody and getting out there as much as a person can with our current climate, it appears one of the biggest issues in the Parkersburg area is definitely the legal drug crisis. And this includes the violent crimes, the vandalism, the lost lives, and the homelessness. And well, when we try to legislate morality, these are some of the outcomes that comes from that. And to remove the guns and the knives from the street there, we're going to have to remove the drugs and their steep black market prices. When businesses and not street level criminals can control these dangerous items, they can be taxed, and those funds can be then fixed into fixing all the problems that go along with them. But that's what I have. If you have any questions or anything.
Okay. So let's start with you on the this question. As a libertarian, how will you solve the issues that you're describing within the district? As not just drug abuse, but loss of industry and things like that. What are your big things there?
About that, less government. We don't need it. We need to simplify the rules. Put everybody with the same set of rules. We're handing out special packages for different industries or people of certain industries where your special interest groups come in and they buy our politicians off. No, just one set of playing rules, try to strip it down and keep things simple and get it done. Business doesn't like uncertainty.
Awesome. Let's see, Will. So you're an outspoken advocate for the Second Amendment. You're a member of the West Virginia Citizens Defense League. Why do you feel the Libertarian Party is the best vehicle to protect your Second Amendment rights?
As a member of the WVCDL, I followed a lot of Second Amendment legislation over the last 6, 7, 8 years. And there's always seems to be some type of Republican opposition, where you least expect it. Very vocal minority in the House and Senate leadership that seem to stymie things at the very last minute, or even from the beginning. From preemption to constitutional carry to to last year's disappointing defeat of House Bill 2519, which the Campus Self-Defense Act. So gun rights activists, supporters of the Second Amendment and constitutionalists, we shouldn't have to fight a two-front battle between anti-gun Democrats who are outspoken against the Second Amendment rights or certain firearms, certain types of firearms. As well as, I support the Second Amendment, but Republicans. And, we got to we have to get more libertarians in Charleston. We have to get more libertarians in DC somehow, to focus on expanding Second Amendment rights and less having to defend them at every turn. That seems to be the biggest issue. That there's always somebody who just wants to add these killer amendments to things like campus carry and constitutional carry and preemption that just and they're always Republicans. Thankfully we're losing some of those Republicans in the form of John Schott and but we still have Hanshaw who voted against campus carry. I mean, so he's the House leadership and judiciary committees and other things that we got to get these people off of there, and people who are absolutely 100% pro Second Amendment, which are mainly libertarians. I mean, it just seems to be that way. So.
Fantastic. Let's see, Brett. Um, as you mentioned, you have just a bunch of licenses to do different things in West Virginia. I've never seen anybody with more and varied licenses in my life. But tell me what it seems to me that having licenses like that are a hindrance to getting West Virginians working and serving one another in an organic way to grow our economy organically. Uh, tell me what the impacts of having all these licenses and what you had to go through, and how would you change the process in Charleston? You're on mute.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Yep.
you. I guess some people would call me a jack of all trades, master of none. But so my thing with it is, it's one thing if you got to, I don't agree with any licenses to begin with, because I don't think you should have to buy your right to do whatever various trade or job you want to do. It should be up to the consumer and the contract that you all agree upon as to how you want to do business. But if there would be one, the problem is you have to keep paying constantly after you get it. I mean, my funeral director's license, it just came up for renewal this year. It's been 2 years since I've gotten it. And I called the state and, told them, I'm going to just freeze it, which they thankfully let you have the ability to freeze your license, which I thought was going to be a good thing. So I sent the application in that I was going to, freeze the license or whatever. Well, they sent me a letter back that I didn't send the check in. Well, I called them up and said, hey, I didn't send the check because I'm not actively practicing as a funeral director. And I didn't, I don't want to send $250 to you for a license that I'm not actively using. And he said, well, that's the way the law is right now. You have to send it every 2 years, whether it's active or inactive. And I told him, well, if that's the case, I'm going to just go take my continuing education and pay the $250 and keep an active license so that I don't have to pay you $250 for nothing. At least I can go out here and get a job if I need to. My license will still be active. And you have to pay $250 for the license, $250 to take the test. Same thing for the food handlers. When I started my food truck, it was $250 to take a food manager's course because they told me that the West Virginia had updated the food laws. So I had to go to Fairfax to take another test in the same building where I took my funeral director's license test. And then when I came and had to do a car show in Jefferson County told me they make you have a food card. So I had to pay $10 and have my picture taken for a food card to do a car show in Jefferson County for one day. So it's just every time you turn around in West Virginia, I mean, I got the inventory tax. We still have the inventory tax. The Republicans always talk about what they're going to do with not passing or doing away with this tax and bringing home rule in. Well, we got home rule, and we have a 7% in the city. We're about to have 7% in the county, and we still have the B&O tax. So it's the same thing over and over again. It's always just if you look at it from my angle, every time you turn around, it's just more and more and more. We're about to have a rain tax. I mean, you just can't get away from it, and we have a cradle to grave government, and that's absolutely not what this country was intended to be. I mean, I believe in the people in this country. I trust the people to do. If I see something sketchy, I won't go into somewhere and eat. It's up to me. I prefer dangerous freedom every day. So, it really it's going to take a major reform to get out of what we have now. I mean, the inventory tax. If I have hot dog buns sitting in my food trailer, they want to tax hot dog buns. And I was joking with Larry Kump the other day about that. He was like, oh my goodness, I'll never get that out of my head. The image of them taxing your buns. And it's like, every time you turn around, it's literally something else that they just take more and more and more and more. And West Virginia just can't afford that. We have too many people that are capable of contributing to society to just be able to just be in the situation that we're in now. It's sad.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually building a house up here. I just actually got my house went up by like $2,000 or $3,000 because of that rain tax. So Yeah, I get you. Every time we turn around, there's something being heaped on us by government, and really, we're not seeing much return for that investment at all. So,
Yep.
definitely, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Hang loose. We're gonna have another ad by our sponsor. I'm not gonna go full screen because Facebook put some interesting suggestions on their videos. So, but let me cue this up. And here we go. Oh,
Position on marijuana is full decriminalization, recreationally and medicinally. Some people ask me why I use the term decriminalization instead of legalization, and the reason is this. If you have a medical condition that requires the use of marijuana, if it is legalized, what that means is it's going to be very expensive. It's going to come with a very high tax rate. It's going to come with a lot of regulation that's only going to allow wealthy industries to get into the business. If it's decriminalized, that means if your grandmother needs it or son needs it, you can grow it in the backyard and you can give it to them. And you're not hurting anybody by doing that. Just like someone who wants to use recreationally on the weekends isn't hurting anybody by engaging in marijuana use. That's why I advocate for full decriminalization in West Virginia.
yes, we do certainly have a better choice this time around. So thank you to everybody. I'm bringing everybody back in. So welcome back, Erica and David. And we're going to go to group questions. To those people who are watching on Facebook and YouTube, on the stream, you can put in questions. If you've registered with StreamYard before, we'll actually see who asked the question. But you can post those questions, and we'll look at them and get them on the air. So let's see. All right. So our first round of group questions here. So keep it clean. But what is the strangest? And anyone can answer this question. It's open to the whole group. What is the strangest question or social media post you've had to deal with this election?
I'll be glad to start if you like, David.
Absolutely.
One of the wonderful things about running for office as a libertarian is that we provide solutions. We call them libertarian solutions. We've been hearing a lot from Travis and Brent and Erica about different ways in which we can solve problems that exist that seem to be almost unsolvable if you step aside and look at them from a different perspective. In my case, I was confronted by a voter one day who asked me what I was going to do with the Civil War. And all I could say was, well, I hope we win it. And let it go at that. So, there are humorous moments on the campaign trail as well as the very serious ones. But from the serious perspective, if you are looking at candidates and if you are thinking about who you want to vote for, ask them what their solution is. Ask them what their libertarian solution is. Don't ask them to just say pay for it or raise money or raise taxes or something like that. A real solution. Thanks, Dave.
Awesome. Anybody else have any stories they'd like to share?
I have some things that are interesting. I don't know that they're funny, but certainly interesting. Apparently, a lot of people don't know that when they go to the polls in November, they can vote for a libertarian regardless of how they're registered. I have a lot of people say to me, well, I'm a registered Republican or I'm a registered Democrat, but I want to vote for you in November. How do I do that? So, it's nice to be able to explain to people out there that don't understand how the process works that they can vote for anybody in November, and it's really the primary where they're limited by their party. So I do have a lot of people ask me those questions. I also have a lot of people that automatically assume that libertarian means liberal because the first 3 letters are the same. So I get a lot of questions about, how are you different from a Democrat if you're liberal? And I have to try to explain to people that that's not what a libertarian is. So those are some things that I have found interesting. I've also had people tell me that they think I'm great and they love what I have to say, but they can't vote for women. I've had that actually happen many, many times. So something else that's interesting.
Brett, I'm sorry, we were getting some feedback on your line. So if you want to talk, just unmute yourself. It's at the bottom.
Is it still? You still hear it?
Yeah, a little bit, but
Man, I haven't changed anything. I don't know what it would be.
yeah, that's all right.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we actually had to change our 3-letter designation up until this year. We were when you appear on the ballot, it has the Republican Party. I think it has GOP, Democratic Party, DEM, or maybe it's REP for the Republicans. For the Libertarians, it used to be LIB, and we got so many people saying, "Oh, you guys are liberals. You're the Liberal Party." So this year, we put in a request to the Secretary of State's office, and thankfully they honored it. I think we tried to do it in 2018 as well, and it didn't go through. But now we appear on the ballot as, I believe, LBN is our 3-letter designation. So let's see. Erica, you've already kind of answered this, but with COVID, does this feel like a real campaign, or what do you miss about traditional campaigning?
I think I just miss, kind of as I mentioned earlier, forming those connections with people. What has been really rewarding for me is the past few weeks, I have been able to get out there at a few small meet and greets, generally under 20 people. And having those conversations where someone says to me, I felt lost. I felt like there was nobody out there that thought the way I did. And then I caught a Facebook Live you did, or someone shared a quote from you. And I realized that, I'm a libertarian, or maybe I'm not a libertarian, but I realize that, you're the choice that I want to make. So I'm so happy that you're running, and thank you for running. And it's those types of interactions that I really miss. Social media is great, and Facebook Live is great, but you don't really get those type of warm, thank yous from people that you do when you see them in person. So that's what I miss the most.
Awesome. Anybody else? Especially like you, Travis, you're a first-time campaigner. How has it impacted you as a first-time campaigner? Do you feel like you're running a real campaign, or is it just kind of all odd?
No, I've ran before, and there I could actually reach out and talk to people. It was really nice, but this is different, and I had a lot more to plan, but I don't want people to feel uncomfortable by going door to door with their current condition. It's definitely different. It's some adjustments for sure. I'm finding a lot of people going online and checking us out, comparing everybody, and now they finally have a chance to look up that third name where before they have it. And they've been getting back with me like, hey, we like what you had to say. So, hopefully good news for people here.
Awesome. New question then. What have you enjoyed about COVID campaigning?
Because I get to spend more time with the kids. It's easier to get home, quicker to get home, get outside, play with them, throw a little bit of football. That's been great. Before it was, a lot of dust to, dye. And now it's like, hey, family's right there, so that makes it handy.
Okay. Anybody else got anything for that? What have you enjoyed about the change of campaign?
I've actually enjoyed it. There's been one disappointing aspect of it is a lot of the candidate forums that were held in the past in Harrison County. They had a big one at the Senior Center. They had the Harrison County Chamber of Commerce one. There were some other private ones as well that I was invited to in 2018. That just didn't happen this year. But some of like the Harrison County Chamber invited me to create a video. There's been some other surveys that I've been sent that that I've been able to fill out, and honestly, I enjoy it. As much as I pretend that I'm a people person, it is more enjoyable to sit and not have to worry too much about getting out and basically what they knocking doors and doing other things. That's been okay. Like Travis mentioned, being home with our kids and with our family and not having to worry about spreading the Rona to people, but not having to go out in masks and other things to knock doors in person. But it has been unfortunate a little bit, like I said, without these candidate forums. But again, I feel much more comfortable at in front of my laptop shooting the proverbial excrement with everyone, and instead of being in front of a room full of people and stammering over myself and trying to get a word in edgewise with other people, it's much more enjoyable over a laptop than it is in person, in my opinion. But you do lose some of the personal interactions with people at events, knocking doors. But to second Erica's mention about the Libertarian Party being the party of the liberal, from personal experience, it was bad. And I knocked doors in 2018. I knocked on a young woman's door, and her mother answered the door. And I introduced myself as the local Libertarian candidate, and her mother proceeded to say, well, she wasn't here, but my daughter is not a Libertarian. And I said, well, her voter's registration says otherwise. But it's a problem, and it's something that we can work on as candidates, and being on the executive committee of the party, and trying to push that across, that if we're not really the party of the liberal, possibly the party of the classical liberal, but at the same time, it's today's moniker or description of a liberal to libertarian is just they're just not the same, and it's something that we're going to have to deal with until we make some more progress. And I'm okay with that. But yeah, the LIB, I don't know if if it help us or hurt us, but I'm glad it did get changed.
Yeah.
David, I'd like to add
Sure.
something there to what was saying. There are some great advantages to the electronic campaigning. Personally, what I miss this summer has been the fairs and festivals. We West Virginians are people that love to have festivals and love to have city fairs. And we've got them for potatoes and raspberries and onions, and you name it, we have a fair for that. And they're usually organized at the local level, county level, sometimes even lower than that. And they attract everyone because everyone wants to go to the fair. That's where they see their neighbors. That's where they talk. That's where they have an opportunity to interact with other people. And we haven't been able to do that this year. Our West Virginia State Fair is a wonderful, wonderful place to visit. Very busy, very crowded, but it's a wonderful place to work, and it's a wonderful place to meet people as well. The only thing that I don't regret is the fact that once I was greeting the baby queen at one of these festivals, and I knelt down to have my picture taken with baby queen, and she hit me in the head with a cotton candy wad. So it took me about a day and a half to get that cotton candy out of my hair. But other than that, we need to be able to go back and spend time with the people. And the fairs in West Virginia are a wonderful place to do that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We actually have a question from the audience. Anybody into economics want to take a stab at this one? Are you more of a Friedman or a Rothbard fan? Are you more minarchist or anarcho-capitalist in your economics? I think you're on mute, Dave.
I'll take a first shot at it and
Sure.
give Erica a chance to come back on this one too. The fundamental libertarian philosophy is that we all need to be contributors to the economic viability of the nation, the state, of the environment in which we live. In order to do that, it's been proven over and over again that free trade and capitalism work best. They may not be perfect. There are always problems associated with anything that we do. But the idea of being able to earn a living, doing what you like to do and what you're good at, is the most important aspect that we have. And that has to be accented and can't be controlled. You heard a lot about control over licenses in this conversation that we've been having. And that's indeed a problem that we have. Lots of you probably don't know that candidates also have to pay a tax. They have to pay a tax in order to run for office. If you didn't know that, look into it, because this is an interesting, intriguing, and in many ways a discriminatory tax, because it makes it very, very difficult for somebody to run for public office if they don't have the funds to file the filing fee. Over to you. Anybody else want to take the economic question?
I find myself wavering back and forth from the whole minarchist anarcho-capitalist stance. As a historian, you see the different different things that have happened over the last 20th century, and you realize that you can't just have zero government. I mean, obviously, it would be great. It would be great to try it. Don't get me wrong. I think we can maybe make our way towards that, but it's not a light switch. You can't just flip it on and off. And with the current makeup of our legislature in both DC and Charleston, we know that's not going to happen. Even if somebody made it in there that was full blown anarcho-capitalist, they're not going to go in there and just shut everything down. That's just not going to happen. There's a process in these things, and it's you would have to have a full legislature of minarchists or anarcho-capitalists or whatever capitalist you want to be in there. But it's like I said, it's not a light switch, and it's something that we have to work towards, and it's not going to happen overnight. And if you just start with the basics, the basic fundamentals of it, you can work towards it and try to spread that message, and people, whether they like it or they hate it, you can get that message across. And some people might say, hey, look, I can go along with that, or yeah, that seems reasonable. I think we can, make our way towards that, and I think that's just what we have to work for. We just can't go in there, screaming guns blazing and saying, hey, we're just going to disband the government for everything, and and make it a free market for everything, and because people are just so frightened of that, and it's got to be acclimated in. It's just something that we have to deal with, whether you're a Milton or a Murray fan. So.
Okay.
I agree with what both Mr. Moran and Mr. Hyman said. And, what I like to remind folks is that I get asked a question a lot. Well, under your plan, what happens? Do corporations just run rampant and take advantage of people? And where's the line? And what I try to remind people is that we as a society are still going to be able to regulate business and corporations. And right now, what happens is business and corporations still take advantage of people. They just do it with the assistance of the government. Everybody seems to have this, this perception that the government's out there, looking out for your best interest and protecting you. But the fact of the matter is that, depending on whose campaign got donated to or who's in which politician's ear at the time, we have things like bending of the rules for certain corporations and certain industries, corporate bailouts, all types of things that the government puts in place that assists corporations and businesses in taking advantage of people.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got another question from the audience. Let's see. This party needs to fight to get on the stages with Democrats and Republicans. Is it the local and state government holding down the party? Erica, I think you've had recent experiences with arbitrary rules and everything.
Yes. So thank you for your question. You know, it's right now, for example, with the state gubernatorial debates, they purposely allow an entity such as the West Virginia Broadcasters Association to host those debates instead of an entity that is run by the state government, so that they can take their hands off and say they're not constitutionally violating our right to freedom of speech. And the answer is yes. You know, it's certainly a problem. Despite the fact that we submitted a petition, we made hundreds of phone calls, thousands of emails to the West Virginia Broadcasters Association who hosted the debates, they would not invite me. And not only would they not invite me, but I could not purchase advertising time during the debates. And that's intentional. If you noticed, the debates were run in such a way that they were streaming. And I think that there was one or maybe two television stations that broadcast them, but there were no commercials during the debates. So even if I wanted to purchase a commercial to air during the debates, I couldn't do that. So that is certainly very problematic. And I've had a lot of people say to me, well, Erica, you know, the Democratic candidate wanted 5 debates and the Republican candidate only wanted 1. So why don't you get together with the Democratic candidate and have your own debate? And the answer is because if they acknowledge our existence, then they recognize that we are a danger. So for them, they just want to pretend that we're not here. And the media certainly assists them in doing that. So yes, it's very, very challenging to get on the stage with the Republican and the Democratic candidates. Really, the only time that you can do it is if there's some sort of candidate forum that's put on by a chamber of commerce. For example, I did share the stage with Ben Salango for about a minute when I went to the Beckley Raleigh Chamber of Commerce candidate forum, but there's just not that many opportunities to do that.
Absolutely. Anybody else have anything they want to add to that?
Well, I had just a thought, David. The whole concept of a two-party system is one that we just seem to accept, and we don't question. Well, we question it as libertarians, but the rest of the country doesn't question it. From my perspective, I think of it as a form of discrimination against people who have a different perspective about the way in which we should be electing our governors and our representatives. And if it was anything that was a common form of discrimination, everyone would be riled up about it. Unfortunately, this one is not. It's going to require a change in attitude. Recall that we have changed political parties' names and functions and so on in the past. Lincoln was the first Republican, and that happened not easily, but it did happen. In our particular case, we just simply have to express what the libertarian perspective is, what the philosophy is, and to be compelling and honest in the way in which we present it. It's a sound political foundation. It's just very difficult for us to convey the soundness of it without having the same access to the forums that the other two parties have. Thanks.
Thank you. See, Brett joined us. Brett, do you have anything to add about the corrupt system, the corrupt two-party system? Oh, you're on mute, man. Brett, you're on mute.
Thank you. Nothing, not too much more than what everybody's already added. You know, it's definitely a sad state of affairs that we have today. And, you know, like I've been telling people, everybody should be absolutely in an uproar that this is what the two major parties are putting in front of people. Like, it's definitely a sad state of affairs, you know. So no, like I said, I don't have much. I was kind of in and out on that whole conversation. I don't know what happened with my mic, but but no, I don't have much more to add. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Any other?
Could I just add something else really quickly? I'm sorry. One of the things that I also, wanted to point out to people is that the moderator of the debates, who's a broadcaster in the state of West Virginia, was getting a lot of phone calls to his show asking why are you not having the other candidates on the ballot at the debate? And his answer was simply, it's a waste of time. We have limited time and it's a waste of time. So what he's telling people is he just doesn't care about, their views, their opinions. He doesn't care if they want to hear from the other candidates. And what we know is if you ask the average voter on the street, should all the candidates on the ballot be invited? The answer is yes. So the voters and people want to hear from us, but the system doesn't want to let us be there.
Yeah, I'll add something to this, and that we say we're in a democratic system, and democracy relies on an informed public to make a solid decision on their election, and you can't have only half the story. You can't have just half the candidates. Somebody's going to walk into their voting booth and say, "Well, I saw Justin Slinger on there. Who are these two other folks that are on the ballot?" Uh, whether you vote for us or not, I don't care, but at least get a chance to hear from us and hear our ideas. Maybe you'll like us, maybe you won't. But as long as you are able to hear our ideas and then make an informed choice as to what goes on in the election, that's just a benefit to all of us.
David, I want to add one more comment to what you're saying. The defense and the whole future of democracy depends upon an educated electorate. That's where it starts. And to deny information to anyone during the electoral process diminishes the power and effectiveness of our democracy. So the campaign should come from everyone. This is not a threat. I mean, you can listen to anybody and disagree with them and not vote for them. So it's not a threat. It's not a threat at all. But it is an opportunity to learn something more about what is governance in our state.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. We've got questions from the audience. In fact, one of our own candidates, wish he had joined us tonight, but Mr. Brett Lee Sullins, how would you use your seat to help with youth retention? I know, Erica, you had discussed this earlier, but what about the other candidates? How do you feel about how are we going to retain the best and brightest of our youth?
Well, I think there's a lot of. I'll jump in here. I think there's a lot of things we can do in Charleston in regards to reducing regulation and other government, burdensome government restrictions and rules to keep youth here. There's a lot of kids, and I'm going to say it pretty bluntly. There's a lot of kids that want to smoke cannabis, and when they get out of high school and they go to college and they get to experience that in a different state, chances are they're not going to come back to West Virginia. That's an issue. There's other scenes, and when I say scenes, scenes for youth and college kids and young professionals in other states that West Virginia just doesn't have, and it usually surrounds areas that are doing very well as far as jobs, and with those jobs comes the environment of young professional. Sometimes they're single, sometimes they're, sometimes they're married. But, a lot of these people, they seek this environment that they want to be at. And, I've been all over West Virginia in the last several years, and, it's just not here. It's not. And I think that starts with, like I said, reducing the government regulations, reducing, burdensome fees and fines and other things that, come along with, trying to start a business. And, right now, it's just not a great place to live if you're young, if you're professional, if you've got some money. And, just let's see, 100 and so miles north of here, you got Pittsburgh. The Eastern Panhandle has Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, Northern Virginia, where, young people can go and, feel like they're, enjoying life. And, we have that environment as far as, the nature and other things here in West Virginia for recreation. But, face it, it's just something that we don't have. And I think, by changing that environment here locally, I think we can change that. And I think, just look at the craft brewing industry in West Virginia over the last, I don't know, 8 years, and how it's taken off. Other states in the union have a thriving craft beer industry, and West Virginia is just starting to get off the ground. And I think that's part of that draw to young people who want to be a part of that. And it's just something that we need to change in Charleston, and we need to change locally, to attract these businesses and environment that people want to enjoy life. And right now, it's just not here in West Virginia.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in fact, if we increase the entrepreneurial spirit and retain more young people, then you have more entrepreneurs coming in to create those industries that help retain those young people. So, absolutely, I see where you're going with that. Anybody else have anything with that?
Yeah, I just want to comment on what Will mentioned there. He's right. It comes down to jobs. We have to have jobs, and so many of my friends would have stayed in the state after they finished college if the jobs were there, but they weren't. They were in other states. They're not going to stay. They can't stay. They put too much in their education. So we have to fix those regulations and slim things down, work this out.
The other thing I think is, young folks don't want to live in a place that seems like it is stuck in the past. They want to see new things. They want to see a society and a culture that's moving forward, as opposed to digging their heels in the ground and, this is the way it's always been and we're not going to move forward. So the things that Will and Travis are talking about are essential in terms of not only offering jobs and creating economic development, but conveying a culture that we're open to new ideas and we're ready to move forward and we're ready to make headway in some of these areas. And then as young folks are looking for two things. They're not just looking for jobs, but they're also looking for culture. And we have a lot of that naturally here in West Virginia. We have a lot of artistic spirit, small art galleries, artists that are here, and, allowing the economy to expand through the things that we've been talking about will also create more cultural opportunities and then keep those folks here as well.
All right. Anybody else? Okay. Let's roll on to this. Kind of refers to a question we were talking about earlier. Many people find it easier to defer to an authority such as government when faced with difficult decisions. How do we best appeal to those with that mindset? Thank you, Benjamin, for that question.
I can take that one if you don't mind.
Sure.
The easiest thing that I have found to make folks understand how this doesn't always work is to just put a face behind it. I mean, right now people are very polarized about our president, right? So to the folks who are Democrats who look for the government to control their lives and they're hardcore Biden people, I say, listen, do you trust Donald Trump to always make your decisions for you? And to the people that are, very much Republican, I say to them, do you trust Joe Biden to make your decisions for you? And almost always the answer is no. So then I point out to them what they're really saying is they don't trust the government to make their decisions. They trust the government if the person is leading that they want to make decisions, but if not, they don't trust them. So, that normally opens people's eyes to the fact that once you give the government power, they're always going to have that power. They're not going to give it back when the person, who's not on your team is in control. And I have found that people can really relate to that.
Yeah. Anybody else on that one?
Well, I'd like to stress responsibility. Responsibility to make your own decisions, as Erica is saying. And most people have a very, very strong affinity to that thought, but they're not quite certain how to exercise it because of the environment, which is so controlling in what one can actually take responsibility for. And throughout this evening, you've been hearing examples of that, where responsibility is being taken away and codified in some fashion to make it restrictive for you to actually take responsibility for yourself, your environment, your town, your family, all of those things. We don't teach responsibility in our schools any longer. It's not even part of the curriculum. Just like civics is no longer part of the curriculum in most of the schools that we have around here. So we need an accent on that. And responsibility goes hand in hand with freedom. If you are free, you are still responsible. You don't have freedom without that. But if you have freedom, you don't have to take the dictates of someone else. You can creatively build your own life. But you've got to take responsibility for the consequences of what you build. So you have to think about it. You just can't do it. You have to think about it.
Exactly. Anybody else on this one?
I think this whole discussion tonight exemplifies why the Libertarian Party needs to be more involved in politics, because we're the only ones that talk about things that make you think, whereas other parties are like, hey, here, we're going to vote this bill that this is what's doing for your business. They're telling you what they're going to do for you, and everybody is starting to see the fact that they're not doing anything for you but screwing you. And hopefully, like I said, everybody here tonight is offering just an abundance of just knowledge that people have literally sat and thought about, and things you have to make people think. You might not agree with it, but it makes you think. And you will not get that from either party. It's, oh, hey, I'm a Christian. Hey, I'm this. Hey, I'm that. Don't mind what I'm doing when I get elected. Just vote for me because I'm telling you what I'm doing for you. And that's what people need to realize, that both these parties do. So this has been a very, positive evening. I've been very appreciative of everybody's comments tonight. So I hope that there's been a lot of listeners that understand that this is the only party that is offering your input. The other parties don't want your input. They just want to tell you how to live. So that's all I have to add.
Absolutely. Anybody else? All right. So we've touched on it. We showed Erica's video, and we have this in the form. We're definitely missing out on the cannabis boom. What are your feelings, frustrations about what's going on with Charleston when it comes to cannabis, especially with right now we've got medical cannabis legalized, but it is heavily regulated and we still haven't seen a dispensary open. So, what are your thoughts on medical cannabis and go into recreational if you feel like it? It's open to anybody.
I mean, being from the Eastern Panhandle, it's definitely a lot different here than it is for the rest of the state. I mean, we're pretty close to DC, and it's definitely more of a, we're close to Baltimore, so it's it's not going to affect us here as much as it will the rest of the state. People definitely need to have access to be able to do what they want to do. I mean, it like Erica said before. I mean, I can't. She said it the best, that there's so many people here that I had heard love her comment about comparing cannabis to a tomato. That was the greatest thing that anybody here in the Eastern Pan. I mean, like, so many old heads came up to me and were like, "Oh, that was the greatest thing I ever heard." That makes complete sense. So, as far as that's all I got to say. I mean, it's past time. We got to get over the nonsense. It is what it is. Everybody's doing it. That's all.
David,
Why don't
let me jump in on this one, because it's important for us, I think, to recognize a couple of things. First of all, the medical use of any particular drug is not a political question. This is not something that should be determined by the political process. It should be determined by the need of the patients for medical marijuana and by their physician, to determine what is the best way to do a treatment or pain reduction or whatever it happens to be. So on that particular side, I can't even see why we're even talking about this any longer. It's just almost crazy that we have this moot point. For recreational use, I have to go back to the point of view that anything that anyone does for any recreational purpose, whatever it happens to be, is their own choice. People have to make that decision. And in a family, families may have to make the decision among themselves. But it should not be limited by anything except by the fact that whatever you do, whatever form of recreational substance, drug, or whatever you may use, you have to take responsibility for your own actions under those circumstances. You can't write it off and say, well, I was out of control. This is a decision process that the human being has to make for themselves. And it applies perfectly to cannabis. A natural substance, grows on the face of the earth. Yes, it does have some psychiatric and psychedelic characteristics, but that's the way nature is. If, however, you are using such a substance, you're responsible for everything that you do. In other words, if you are driving, you probably shouldn't be using it. You should be using it somewhere where you're not going to have an adverse effect or cause harm to another individual.
Absolutely. So, Erica, for those people who
Yes.
may have not seen this or heard this, tell us about your analogy with tomatoes.
Sure. Thank you for asking. I use the term when I'm talking about cannabis, I say that I'm in favor of complete decriminalization. And so often people don't understand what I mean when I say decriminalization. And they think that that is somehow a softer stance on legalization. And they say, well, why don't we legalize it? And the answer is this: because legalization means a very high tax rate. It means permitting. It means red tape. Medical cannabis was passed, it seems like decades ago in West Virginia, and it's still not off the ground. And today, what is the headline that we see? That West Virginia has issued the growing permits to large out-of-state corporations, which shouldn't be a shock to anyone. So what I have said is that cannabis should be like tomatoes. Tomatoes are not legal. They just aren't criminal. So you can grow tomatoes in your backyard. You can get them at the farmer's market. You can buy them at Walmart. You can get them from your friend. If your mom's got some extra tomatoes, she gives them to you, and nobody cares because tomatoes aren't legal. They're just not criminal. They're not anything. They're a plant. They're tomatoes. And I think that cannabis should be like tomatoes.
Absolutely. Let's see. So This question I've come up with. Brag on your volunteers a little bit. Tell me who in your campaign you really, really, really appreciate.
I'll start here. I've had a campaign finance manager. My wife Rosie, she's helped me out through the last since 2018. This has been like a perpetual campaign. Um, since then, I ran for House of Delegates. Then I followed up with an unsuccessful city council campaign for the city of Clarksburg, which I did much better. But here we are in 2020. I'm running again, so I got to send a shout out to my wife. She handles the books. She does it very well. She supports my efforts, allows me to gallivant all around Harrison County and put up signs, and sometimes act a fool. And that's okay. A couple others, Rusty Holland, our former Senate candidate. He's in my inbox every day, just talking about libertarianism and other things, as well as Joe Second. Me and him and Russ here. That's kind of my campaign team, and we've been we talk about things that are happening locally, and sometimes that's all you need as a candidate is just somebody to say, hey, look, you should address this, or you should go here and talk to this person here, or, and that's, as a candidate, it means a lot, and I'd like to thank those people. Especially my wife, for putting up with all this nonsense.
David, I want to throw in another name here. A man that I think of as Mr. Libertarian, West Virginia, and that's Carl Swisher. If you haven't met Carl, any of you that are watching this program, you should. Because here is a guy who has dedicated his time, his effort, and a lot of his money to making the Libertarian Party in West Virginia successful. I met him 13, 14 years ago. He serves as the treasurer for my campaign for Congress at the moment. He is our researcher. He is constantly looking up new material. He's subscribing to newspapers and sending us articles whenever he can. He's doing the hard work that is so important for any candidate in the Libertarian Party. So, Carl, if you're watching, kudos to you and thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Who's next?
I have to thank, I haven't been doing a whole lot of fundraising this year. I was fortunate enough to raise enough money 2 years ago to buy enough signs and have my literature again. I kind of based it off of a recurring run. So, but I have to thank Adam Eisenhower this year. I was fortunate enough to meet him at Joe Jorgensen's event there at Holiday Inn. He funded basically my filing fee. So I have to thank Adam for getting me on the ballot this year. And as always, John Buckley. I usually call John every time before I go on the radio for an event or something and just pick his mind, because he's always, he showed up to the first youth fair for me and along with Bill Redpath. So John's always, one of the first ones I call before I get on the radio and get grilled by somebody, just because he's done it for a long time. So Adam Eisenhower and John Buckley and John Duke. John Duke's all, my first campaign sign was put up out on Duke's property. So, and he always helps me out. I was my own treasurer this year. I didn't raise a lot of funds because I've been busy doing some things. So, but I have to shout out to those guys. I appreciate it. So.
Awesome. Let's see. Erica,
Sure. Well, I have so many people to be thankful for. Actually, the outpouring of volunteers and support that I have gotten is amazing. I suppose I should start with David Moran and John Buckley and my husband, Carl, who convinced me in the beginning that I was capable of doing this. So I have an awful lot of gratitude for those three gentlemen, all of whom are always there for me to bounce ideas off. Certainly the entire executive committee of the Libertarian Party of West Virginia has been very gracious. Will designed my logo, which is wonderful and has been almost the cornerstone of my branding. It was a genius logo, so I'm really thankful to him. And then so many people who just, came out of the woodwork to get involved. My social media manager, Bailey, who's doing a fantastic job with my social media and has never been involved in politics or a political campaign before. My treasurer, Amy, and my campaign manager, Risa, both of whom are new to this game and who are doing a fantastic job. Stephanie Butcher has really stepped up to the plate to help me a lot. And there are so many people. I just met a young man on Monday who volunteered to have an event for me today. So there are just so many people over, throughout the state who've come out of the woodwork to help me. And I couldn't be more thankful. This is, a really tough job, and it's certainly tough to do on your own. So I'm thankful. And, I think one of the things that I'm most thankful for is that I have libertarians, independents, Republicans, and Democrats all working on my campaign. And that's something that I'm very, very proud of and very thankful for.
Awesome. Travis?
Sure. I wanted to thank my wife, because without her supporting me and helping me out, it would be a lot harder for sure. And my biggest little fan was my daughter. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't even be running. She was the one that was home when I came back after seeing the political signs outside and seeing that somebody was running again. And she asked me what I'm going to do about it, which set me back for a second. But that's something I usually do with the kids whenever they have something going on. I ask them, what are they going to do about it to improve the situation? So she gave that back to me and kind of helped nudge me along there.
Awesome. So I'll take a moment as state chair that I'll brag on our other campaign in the state, and that is the Joe Jorgensen campaign. We have some incredible volunteers on that campaign. Jennifer Fisher is the state coordinator for the campaign. She is absolutely wonderful. She's kind of helping with the coordinated campaigns between Erica and Joe and the rest of the state. Chester DeBerry, man, that guy, he works. He puts in the work, and so glad that we found him this year. Kevin Patrick Jr. He is always stepped up and a great person to interact with. So and there are so many on that. Darren Cook. Wow, I'm drawing blanks on names right now, but Darren Cook reached out to me early on and was interested in getting involved in campaigns, and really was a great logistics coordinator for the Jorgensen campaign. So we have great volunteers in the state, and really for us, the big thing is working on retaining them beyond the election, getting them involved in affiliates and getting ready for 2022, because we've got state house, state senate campaigns coming up again, and we need candidates. We got city council and county commission races coming up. Just got to have places to plug these people into. So I want to give a special shout out because he's in the comments. Brett Sullins is our candidate for Parkersburg City Council District 5. I've never met a more passionate person. He is, just a good-hearted person. I know, Erica, you had an interaction with Brett at a event where he showed his great demeanor and helping out homeless people in the city of Parkersburg. I hope he gets elected, because that is exactly the type of voice that we need marching forward. That compassionate libertarianism that will sell the party, because that's what I think one of the biggest complaints that we get as libertarians is that we're selfish, and we're spend some time with Brett, and you'll understand that the libertarian philosophy is the most compassionate philosophy, the most person friendly philosophy out there. But I'll get off my soapbox. We have just a tremendous number of volunteers in the state, and I thank everyone for participating in this election. Let's see, we've had All right. Actually, this is a question from Brett. How do we help those individuals who feel disenfranchised with our government's bureaucracy? Anyone want to take that?
I think it starts with
What?
I'll let David go first if that's okay, but I can continue. But I was just going to say, I think it helps just trying to offer people alternatives. When they say, "Man, I can't deal with these licenses. I can't deal with the way the state is you know, in regards to school, you know, the restrictions that are going on with COVID, and it, it it's we just got to offer people an alternative. When they say, hey, I'm bogged down because I owe this money to the state, or they want to force my kid to do this online learning. How can we do it? We just got to say, hey, look, have you tried doing this? Have you tried opting out? Have you tried doing something so you don't have to feel disenfranchised? You don't have to play into their game. And I think that's as libertarians, I know personally, I've been doing it for longer than I've been a libertarian. How can I get out of this? How can I do how can I do this different, or I don't have to pay into it, or I don't have to do this work that I feel is unnecessary to to achieve the goal I want. And as a libertarian, I look back at when I was younger, and things that I try to do to avoid bureaucracy, and it's almost like it was like an epiphany. It's like, well, maybe that's why I'm a libertarian, because I tried to do it this way when they said I couldn't do it, and I ended up accomplishing my goal without having to beg for permission from the state, or go to city hall and do something that I felt was burdensome, or something that I didn't really want to do. So I think we got to start when people say, look, I can't get ahead because of what's going on. We got to say, well, have you tried doing something different? Have you tried approaching it from this angle, using a libertarian solution, as Mr. Moran said earlier. And I think that's where we have to start. And, I think once you expose that to somebody and they say, hey, look, you helped me out, you helped me accomplish this goal without having to do, A, B, and C to accomplish it. It really helped me out. I think that's, it turns a lot of heads, and they say, hey, look, maybe we don't need this. Maybe we don't need that to, we don't need this government to tell me what to do and how to do it. I can do that on my own. And, that's, kind of how I got started on the path. And I think that's something that we can do as candidates, and even neighbors and friends. So, that's how I look at it.
Awesome. David?
I might be able to add another thought, very, very similar to what you just heard from Will. And that is that it is really our obligation to make our nation and state and society better. It's our individual obligation to do that. And there are millions of ways in which we can contribute. The trick is make a contribution. Make something work. Volunteer in some fashion. Bureaucracy is not going to solve the educational problem. Bureaucracy can't even solve the pothole problem in West Virginia. But those problems can be solved by all of us taking attention, looking, making sure that we can't ourselves just solve it. If we can, do it. Get it over with. If we can't, then of course we're confronting what is the very, very difficult part of our lives, trying to convince somebody else in authority that they ought to take an interest in an issue or a problem that we have. Brent is dealing with homeless in his town. This is a volunteer activity that he's going through. It's exemplary, but it's hard. It's something that everyone can do, but it's not easy. But then nobody ever promised us any of this was going to be easy. Taking care of ourselves is a hard thing to do. It's a lot harder than just sitting back and let the government tell you what they want you to do.
Absolutely.
Over to you, David.
Absolutely. Brett, I think you were trying to jump in.
I was not. I'm sorry, my phone was about to die.
Oh, okay.
I just noticed I was on 1%. I ran upstairs.
That's all good.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No, you're good, man. You're good. Anybody else how to deal with those people who are feeling disenfranchised by a bureaucracy?
I will, since you've already asked me. I'll say the best thing
Yeah.
we can do is ask questions instead of telling people what to do. Like I said earlier, is ask questions and have a discussion. You can't do anything more than when somebody's griping about something, say, hey, well, what exactly is your gripe? And let's sit here and discuss where it actually comes from and why. That's what my friend was, he grew up in inner city Baltimore. He was here the other day, and I was like, that's what I asked him questions. Like, let's trace back to where the problem started from, and and when you don't approach people in such a dominant force, and you're just like, let's sit here and work together, because everybody wants the same thing. You can sit here and be Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, whatever, but everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants prosperity and peace and freedom. So we just got to figure out how we can all achieve that. And the only way you can do that is by asking questions and figuring out what works best for the individual, because there is no larger minority than the individual. So that's all I have to add.
Absolutely. Anybody else have anything? All right. Well, got 10 minutes left. Anybody have any questions for the other candidates? Any burning question they want to know? I've never seen libertarians silent.
It's getting 10 o'clock.
I'm going to jump in here, David. And this will be my final thought and final shot for what we're doing. We call ourselves libertarians. It is a old and very well established philosophy of governance and civic responsibility. It goes all the way back to the foundations of democracy in Athens 2,500 years ago. In the process of doing that, the way that it is reflected these days is something that everyone should think about. And that is the freedom to do what you want to do yourself, because you're a human being and you have the free will to do things. The freedom to do that, so long as you do not have any detrimental effect upon someone else. That through the actions of expressing your own freedom and practicing it, that you do not reduce, eliminate, or in any way harm other individuals or the area in which they live. This is a tough one, but it's not impossible. And it should be the foundation of everything that we do. Whether or not we are elected to office, it still is the foundation for everything that all of us should be doing. That is my last shot, David.
Well, that is fantastic. Anybody have anything else? All right. So, Travis, tell the people where to find your information on the internet.
Well, although I'm not a big fan of using Google, you can just type in Travis Schultz or Schultz for Senate, the number 4. Same thing for Facebook, and you should be able to find me right away. Fortunately, I'm towards the top of the list.
All right. I'm making sure I got it here. Yeah, here we go. Here is your Facebook page. So anybody wanting to come online to find Travis, go to Schultz for Senate, type that in your search bar up here, and it will pull up his Facebook page. And it's schultzforsenate.com, right? Or
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Awesome. Okay, Brett, tell us how to find your information on online here. Oh, you're on mute.
You can definitely find me on Facebook. Brett Rogers for Delegate 63rd District. You'll find it if you type my name in. 63rd
There it is.
There it is. 63rd District. And I'm not sure if my website's still up or not, but it is rogersfordelegate63.com. If it's still up. I think I paid for a couple of years for GoDaddy. So he said that's the beauty of the Libertarian.
Number 4 delegate.
Yep, number 4. That is the beauty of running for the Libertarian Party, folks. Is it's a grassroots thing, and you are definitely involved. It's you don't have to worry about other people sending out flyers for you and speaking for you. You are a part of a family. That is for sure. That is one thing. That's why I never leave. It is definitely a family party at this point. So
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll figure out how to work this.
and you
thing.
can call me 304-671-3563. My number's on the website. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to get this thing back in front of my face. It's on my website, so
Awesome.
leave me a message. I probably won't answer the first time if I don't have your number, but I'll call you back.
Cool. All right, Mr. Hammond.
You can find me on the interwebs at Will Hyman. That's WILHYMAN FORWV.com. Will Hyman for West Virginia.com. You can also find me on Facebook at Hyman for House. That's the Facebook @ symbol Hyman for House. You can also see me on Twitter. That's where I get really spicy with libertarianism. That's Hyman _West WV. Like I said, I'm a little bit more spicier there on Twitter. You might not like it as much as my Facebook post, but either way, check me out. I just posted my recent radio ad today there. You can listen to it, and you can see me. Oh, there's my unbearded self there. That's from a few years ago. Yeah, so young and innocent. Exactly. That helps me at the ballot box. But yeah, I got to update that. But everything else has been updated. Check me out there. That's my new radio ad there. But anyway, that's where you can hit me.
Awesome. All right. Well, I won't keep everyone all night. We could probably go all night. We're libertarians, so. But as we head out tonight, I'm going to go and play Mr. Hyman's radio ad. I want to thank everybody for coming on tonight. Erica, David, Travis, Will, and Brett. And I want to thank the people that tossed in questions and engaged online. TJ Snyder, Matthew Lucas, Brett Sollins, James Savina. Thank you so much for being interactive with us. Thank you for giving us your attention. Get out and vote. Early voting starts October 21st. November 3rd is, of course, the election, and I'm sure we'll all be thankful for that day to be done. But thank you so much for being here, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Vote Libertarian. Vote Will Hyman for House of Delegates.
Oh, what happened there?
Are you tired?
I guess Facebook is not cooperating.
You're mute.
That's it.
You just had to do the commercial live, Will.
You have to be smarter than Facebook sometimes. No, I think Facebook has actively shut you down, man. It's part of the conspiracy.
Yeah. Regardless of your opinion on the virus itself, it's plain to see that COVID restrictions put in place by Governor Justice did more harm than good to West Virginia's already fragile economy. The governor, through very questionable executive orders, decided what businesses could remain open and decided what employees were essential. Those orders and mandates are not indicative of a free market or free society. The government, at any level, doesn't have the authority to shut down businesses, place restrictions on travel or gatherings, or even force you to wear a mask. I believe the governor's executive orders were unconstitutional, and I will do everything in my power to overturn them and get West Virginia on the right track to recovery from the self-inflicted wound. It's okay to be careful. It's even okay to wear masks and social distance. However, it's okay to force anyone in business to comply with unconstitutional executive orders and mandates. It's time to open West Virginia back up and return to normalcy. First and foremost, lawmakers in Charleston need to realize that the opioid and methamphetamine crisis has been exacerbated by the COVID lockdowns from Governor Justice. People struggling with addiction and mental illness suffered immensely under these restrictions. It's plain to see that locking every user up in our regional jails is a failed policy, especially now that our jails are over capacity and restrictions put in place rarely see them sent to jail. It's time to look towards free market solutions to get these people so the people who want help can seek effective and affordable treatment. The easy answer here is always the best answer. Get government out of the way. Let West Virginians seek their own solutions and stop forcing them into government-controlled markets. Let the people or even rural municipalities set up their own ISPs and stop wasting money on Frontier, who will never be able to offer high-speed service to our most rural West Virginians. Seeking free market solutions with infrastructure projects will always deliver a better result in the product and the cost to taxpayers. As a libertarian, I offer the voters of the 48th District a new direction away from the same rehashed failures of the two-party system. This direction is based on fundamentals of liberty and freedom and the guidance and limits of the U.S. and West Virginia State Constitution. I will stand up for what is right for every West Virginian and pledge to never raise taxes, defend the Second Amendment, and defend your sacred right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This November 3rd, vote bold, vote gold, and vote libertarian. I'm Will Hyman, and I approve this message.
All right, fantastic, Will. I think Will's already dropped off, but thanks everybody for joining, and we'll talk to you again very soon.